Welcome to Be Bold Branding. Your brand is like a book. Well, this topic came to mind for a couple of different reasons. First, from my old radio days when clients would insist that literally everything be crammed into one 30 or 60-second commercial, which I still haven't forgotten about. And second, because we continually hear people say things like, it takes way too long to build a brand. I don't have a couple of years, right? So there has been a false belief that everything is communicated or not communicated in one fell swoop.
Yep. So we thought we would break down exactly how a brand works using the analogy of a book, which is the way you, as the creator of your brand, should be thinking about your brand. Like you should look at it like a book. Okay. And there's going to be 3 facts we're going to go over that you need to know to make sure your customers eagerly turn the page inside of your book and learn more about your brand, if you will.
I'm Tanya Eberhardt, founder of BrandFace, where we help business stars differentiate themselves, and we do that through personal branding.
And I'm Michael Carr. I'm the COO of BrandFace. I was a client first and believed in the principle so much, I became a partner in the company. We're the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe. I'm going to jump right into fact number 1, which is really important because we want y'all to get to the meat of the thing. Look, our grandparents taught us, you can't judge a book by its cover, right? And so people come to us all the time and they might be, they saying this about a brand and they saying that about a brand or whether I even need a brand or something. You have to understand something. Brands are very important. You're seeing it more and more. It's catching on more and more. There's a lot of people realizing what this young lady realized many, many, many decades ago and several decades ago, I should say. And,
not that many.
And exactly, right? And that, not even, but yes, but sort of, I didn't mention anything that might accommodate anybody. But the point that I'm making is your brand should be like a book, folks. Like it should be compelling on the top, but you can't put the entire book on the outside cover. Then there wouldn't be a need for the book. And this is the reason why, if any of you bought the Cliff Notes, you failed school most likely, right? Because you can't get it all. You got to read the book to understand it. And you need to understand that that's the way you need to present yourself and expect your customers to also interact with you about. So consider social media as that number 1 thing that we want to talk about here is you can't possibly tell everybody in one post what you are, what you do, what you stand for, how you can help them. We're branding experts and we can't do that. You have to build it post by post. I like to think it's building a culture. A book is a culture, right? You have to describe the characters, the setting, the whole reason. You have to build to the climax. You have to work to the denouement. You're doing the same thing with your brand, and you want to make your brand a page turner, and you want to give your customers and your clients a reason to turn the page to the next post.
You got it. And one of the things that is important to know is that your brand is not necessarily defined, or the growth of your brand is not necessarily defined by time or even expense. Now, before everybody goes crazy, let me explain it this way. It's recognized or defined by exposures, okay? So you could make the argument that, well, so-and-so has a lot of money to put out there, therefore they can purchase more exposures in a shorter time period and get their brand out there faster. That part is true. That is true. Not a lot of people have that, by the way. Most people, most business owners and entrepreneurs, they do not have the ability to pour a bunch of money into their brand all in one fell swoop, right? So that is a very fortunate thing in the world that we live in today, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment, because there are many ways to get your brand out there at low cost and no cost. And that's where it really becomes important, where exposure takes the place of time and expense, right? So think of it this way. Each time someone's exposed to your branding elements, it makes an impact. So your elements include things like your brand images, your brand colors, your logo, your brand identifier, photos of yourself, brand messaging, which those are the words that communicate what you stand for, your promise to your customers. So those are the sentences, paragraphs, pages, and chapters of the book. So as Michael says, there's no getting directly from A to Z. Each exposure, each page, each chapter is how your brand gets out there. So the reason the recognition of your brand isn't based on time or expense alone is because in today's world, as we said, you can get exposures for next to nothing. And the number of those exposures is based on how much effort you're willing to put in.
Mm-hmm.
That's the real thing we're talking about here today, guys, the effort. So for instance, when you send a message out through, let's say, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and you send it out to your email database, okay? That's the same message going out on 5 different platforms, 5 different exposures. And all of those are either no cost or very low cost.
Mm-hmm.
And the low cost would be something like your, whatever your email marketing platform costs you on a flat monthly fee. So those are the things we talk about. And so keep in mind, it doesn't take months or years to build that brand. It takes exposures.
Yes. It's a great way to look at it. And of course, the goal in those exposures is to get your clients or customers to turn the next page. That's really what you want, to take the next step, okay, in the path, just like you would in a book, like turn to the next page. I got to go to the next chapter. Okay, this is exciting. I got to figure this out, right? That could mean that someone sees your branding elements and asks you something like, well, what does that mean? Or it says, tell me more. There's nothing wrong with provocative, right? There's nothing wrong with mysterious in a certain way. We can show you inside the BrandFace program how you can be forward to the people in a very obvious way, but yet the statements of the post be very benign, right? And it keep them moving in your direction, towards your culture, towards the rest of the book. That's why it's so critical that your book look different from everybody else's, right? Otherwise, what would draw attention to that? Turning to the next page could mean they go from an email you sent them to your website, or from your website to your YouTube channel, and you're bouncing them around, right? It's knowing your Google Analytics in the back of your website and seeing what pages are they going to. Are they bouncing from page to page? These are the things that keep your page turner brand, as an analogy of a book, keep it going, because you want to be at that cliffhanger. You want to keep moving. So with every exposure, they learn more about you. That's that building that culture. And if they're seeing things and hearing things that match their own ideals and needs, it's like building to the climax of the book, which would be them reaching out and contacting you, right? Where a decision is made to make a movement towards you, to contact you, right? And then you would put them in your funnel, and really the process sort of starts over again towards your paycheck, which is why you're in business.
You got it. So there are 2 main takeaways from your brand as a book today. You can't communicate your entire brand in one setting or even one exposure. Okay, that's something you got to keep in mind. It takes exposures, plural, yes. Right? And it doesn't take a lot of time to build a brand. Mm-mm. It takes a lot of exposures.
Yep. So I think that's really the biggest takeaway. And, you know, hey, we live in a great time, I got to say, because used to, it did cost a lot of money to be able to really push a brand out there. But today we've got so many platforms to do it. But the problem is a lot of people don't see the importance of that. You know, back in the day, keeping the book analogy going, the cover of a book was what caught your eye. Like that's what that's what your publisher was trying to get done, was make something that was eye catchy, because it was going to be on a shelf where people would have to go and they got this wall of books to look at. What's going to catch their eye, right? Even inside the section that they would be in, what's going to catch their eye? If you don't have a brand, folks, you're not catching their eye, because you're not setting yourself apart right off the bat. And then if you're taking that and the anticipation or that expectation that you're going to be able to just pour out everything that you are in your culture in one post, it's just not going to happen that way. But we can show you how to make it happen pretty much overnight because of the differentiation. Right? It's about exposures, folks, about the right exposures. So it likened it to my one of my mentors as an auctioneer. He used to say that when I would get up, he'd be like, "Come on, son, we're going to pull me by the shirt like this. We're going to get you some exposure." That's what he'd say. But he knew that every time that I was up, I met somebody else that would carry my reputation further. I was building a brand, and that was long before she taught me that that's what it was. So, hey, listen, we hear people all the time deal with this. Like, we're on the phone with people all the time, and they're talking about this. Well, is the brand going to be hard to build? Is it going to take me a long time to build it? You know, here's the one thing we do know. If you pass today and you start building a brand tomorrow, you're already a day longer than you should be. right? So
there you go.
we designed discussyourbrand.com, where you can get started today, folks. And there's never been a better time. To put it in better words, Tanya taught me a long time ago, the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Go to discussyourbrand.com and get started.
Yep. Hey, and if you enjoyed today's topic, hit subscribe to our channel, and be the first to know each time we come out with a new awesome topic like this.
Yep. And hey, folks, we know one thing. It's about prosperity. That's the reason we do all of it. But we know that prosperity is not just money. Well, it's not what we're all after, right? We're talking about freedom. We're talking about the 360 of an abundant life that leads to freedom. And we know here that prosperity favors the bold. So we say, be bold, especially with your brand, folks. And thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Hey, join us next time on Be Bold Branding.